Oh, man. We're up. Oh. Hello, sportsmen. Hey, this weekend is the tops of all weekend for deer hunters, the opening of Michigan's firearm deer season. Now, if you are hunting from a tent like we did during bow season, I have some tips and ideas on how your hunting camp can be more comfortable. Naturally, we'll have a forecast of deer hunting around the state, a list of reminders of laws and regulations that affect hunters. I'll explain how you can qualify for one of our 1992 Real Tree Hunting Awards and have a chance to appear on Big Buck Night. And we have a lot more, so you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost with ideas on how you can become a more practical sportsman.
It's a buck, dude. That's right. It's a buck.
This was our bow camp on the edge of some good hunting land near Tawas. Now, whether it's late October or mid-November, hunting from a tent in cold weather can be fun, but only if you're prepared.
Well, here we are, spacious pumpkin tent. Now, this is camping, a bargain type of camping situation. You can see basically we're set up with a sleeping area here and a cooking area over here. Most often you'd want to cook outside because of the humidity, put a fly up, but it is so cold, down to 15 degrees last night, that we're doing some cooking in here. We have the stove here, gasoline stove, on a metal table. Oh, right here, look at this. Charlie has some of his chili. Look at that, John. This is awesome chili. That's heating up on the stove. We're going to eat in just a little bit. We have drinking water by the door. We have another stove here. Now, this kind of stove, if you ever see one at a garage sale sometime, this old cast iron type of propane stove, excellent to use on camping. This is one we borrowed. It's mounted on a board. Outside, we have a hose run out there to a big LP gas tank. You can see it outside the tent. We use this for some of our heavy-duty cooking. Gloves, matches, right by here because you're always moving hot pans and things. Right over my head is a lantern. We've hung from the ceiling, throws light, a little bit of heat. Down here, storage. Okay, these are things that you can borrow from people just for a camping trip. These milk crates, excellent. We have some potatoes in here. This heater, found out that this wouldn't do the job in this big tent. It has a small propane tank. It costs a lot of money to run something like this. This you'll see us use in duck blinds, ice fishing, deer hunting. Not in this tent, though. Here's our setup for our cooking. We have all of our food here, different types of ice chests. This is just an inexpensive styrofoam, but we tape the top on. Here we have lunch meat. This, best idea going. Chili. Charlie made up some chili at home. This was frozen. Here's stew that's still frozen. The more you can make up at home, put in bags, and heat up at camp, the easier it is. But we have utensils here. Here, these were Tim Farragon's knives, forks, and spoons. He got these at a garage sale. $10 got the whole bag, a whole set of utensils, enough for 8 people. So this is our cooking setup here. It does throw off some humidity. Oh, I'll tell you how to deal with that later. Now for our sleeping accommodations. We do have a bunk that came with this tent. It's just a freestanding bunk, but this is where John Ford sleeps up top. He has a regular sleeping bag. This is not a down sleeping bag. He was a little chilly, so he put some down vests inside here to put on top of him at night, which helps out. Throws a comforter on top. Now, Tim Farragon, downstairs here, has the ideal setup. He has a goose down sleeping bag, 12 pounds of eider goose down in this, with a flannel liner, which is important. It keeps the humidity right in this liner, and you can air it out. But he's all set with this and a pillow. You see he has a flashlight right by the bottom of the bunk. That's for getting up in the night, those emergency trips you have to make. His boots ready to go, and a stool to sit on to put the boots on. The drawback of this eider sleeping bag, there's only one drawback. That's the price tag. It's about $400 nowadays for a sleeping bag like this. Obviously, I'm not in a position for a $400 sleeping bag yet, so I am showing you the bargain way to keep warm when the temperature gets down to 15 degrees like it was. This sleeping bag here is an old one that I've had around. The zipper is broken on it, so it can't be used as a sleeping bag. I put this on top of me. Also, underneath that is a wool blanket, just for a little extra insulation. Now here's my sleeping bag. It's a down sleeping bag, probably designed for 10, 20 degrees, but over the years, some of the feathers I think are broken down a little bit and it isn't that warm. So inside this down sleeping bag, I put a blanket. This is a sort of a cotton blanket. In fact, look at this. It was an electric blanket that fizzled. So this is a non-functional electric blanket, but I use it on camping trips. I sleep inside this, and this is the warmest thing I've found for an inner liner. It's like a flannel sheet. And under it, foam pad. Air mattresses, no good in temperatures like we're dealing with here, down to 10, 20 degrees at night. But this foam pad insulates you from anything. I like to sleep on a cot, a small cot, because air circulates there, just minimizes the humidity problem that might come up from the bottom. But that's what I'm sleeping on. But now, what am I really sleeping in? I'll tell you, when the temperature gets down, like last night to 15 degrees, the air you're breathing, your head gets tremendously cold, and a lot of heat can go out the top of your head. Here's what I wear to bed. Remember, this is no beauty contest. First of all, I wear a sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants, along with wool socks. Put those on for the basic pajamas. And this is the real key. I wear a knit hat, which I put on my head, and that keeps my head warm, my ears warm, and, believe it or not, a scarf. Wind the scarf around my neck like that, and I stay warm all night long. The air doesn't come in and out. In fact, I've gotten John Ford. John, you're wearing this at night too, this type of thing. A pillow. Don't ever let anybody tell you that a pillow is sissy in camp. This keeps you warm. Yeah, I turn it over at night because it gets a little moist. A lot of humidity in here, like I said, in an enclosed tent. Now, here's another thing. Sissy, tough rocks. When I have to get up in the night, I swing over, put on these slippers. That's all I wear them for. They have a good walking bottom on it, so I can go outside and do what I have to do in the middle of the night. Keep our clothes in duffel bags. That's the easiest way to organize. This is a big duffel bag. It was about a $30 duffel bag, I think, but I can carry all kinds of things in it. And that's our basic setup. Oh, ground cloth. This is a small ground cloth, another thing we borrowed, but put down on the ground, keeps your feet dry when you wake up in the night or you're walking around. Now, I told you before about the humidity problems. You can see the humidity here on the inside of the tent, partly from cooking, but a lot of it just from breathing at night, having 3, 4, 5 people in the tent. In the daytime, when we get up, look at that humidity, wow, on the inside. Unzip the windows and let this humidity out. That's very important to do, to air out the tent during the day. And another thing you want to do after you get up in the morning, take your sleeping bag, open it up. If you don't air it out and hang it up, at least open it up like that and let it air out and dry out. That's very important, very important. This is our camp setup. This is where we've spent the last week. Believe it or not, even without, we're supposed to have a wood stove here. Somebody absconded with our wood stove where we had it stored, so we didn't have the wood stove to keep us warm. But we kept comfortable with the sleeping bags, with our cooking facilities. A lot of this, like I said, when we go back home this weekend, we have to give it back to people we've borrowed different things from. But that's a practical way to go. Find some friends who have some different items, and you can collaborate and do camping trips like this. It's a lot of fun.
You know, the best thing about a hunting camp like this is always the food. Now, it's probably no better than what you get at home, but for some reason, the meals around a campfire seem like the best you ever tasted.
Hunting camp is a big part of deer hunting. Now, I don't have any tips for how you can win at poker. You're on your own for that, but I will. Now, speaking of big racks, let's go back to the deer exhibit here in the museum and find out where these big ones come from. The big bucks, the ones with the really huge racks, are they generally younger bucks or are they the really old ones? Well, that's a good question. A lot of people think the older the buck, the bigger the rack. Well, here we have on display Jose. This was the family pet of Lou and Doris Pittman down in Brooklyn, Michigan for 16 years. They collected all of the antlers that Jose grew in those 16 years. He started off with 8-point racks when he was a year and a half old. He did that for 3 years. 4.5 years, he grew 10-point racks and did that for 4 or 5 years. His best rack, according to Ray Dawson, the taxidermist who mounted Jose, was his 6.5-year rack, a perfect 10-point. But after this, his rack started getting kind of weird. In fact, here, 11.5 years, extremely deformed. And as he got older, they shrunk and got more and more deformed. This happens to a buck's rack if he lives long enough in the wild. They normally don't. They're breeding a lot between 4, 5, and 6 years old, and they expire during the winter oftentimes. So our big bucks are probably going to be 4- and 5-year-old bucks. Now, all this attention to antlers, don't get the wrong idea about hunting. Hunting is primarily a food gathering activity. Now, we enjoy many other aspects about hunting, which is a bonus to hunters, but the real prize is the venison that we bring home. In fact, Kathy Beitler has an award-winning venison recipe that is absolutely tops.
This week's recipe calls for venison burger, and the crust is what's really going to make this different.
Oh, now Barbara Conklin usually does pheasant dishes. In fact,
Excellent.
Those look like pheasant thighs sitting there.
They do. Going to make a crust out of butter and cottage cheese. And then going to add some flour to it.
Say what?
Yep. The cottage
cheese
is going to make the base for a crust. It's going to actually keep the crust moist. It's not going to be real dry and flaky when you get all done.
You mean in that dough right there, there's cottage cheese?
Yep.
That is different.
It is, and 2 sticks of butter, and you do want to go ahead and roll it out, and you want to make sure that your board is pretty well floured because it will stick. It's quite sticky.
You can see the cottage cheese curds in there.
Yeah, and then you're going to go ahead and cut this into little squares or rectangles because it's going to actually make a turnover when you're done. You want to fry your venison burger, and I'm going to add some onions to it, and that's about all that goes into here. Well, no, there actually is sour cream, mushrooms, a little bit of dill weed, and some black pepper.
Oh, and mixed in with the burger?
I was really surprised that, yep.
So you mix it in as the burger's cooking?
Right, yep, because you want to melt that sour cream down a little bit. And go ahead and put those in the turnover and then seal the edges.
That's like a little teeny pasty.
It is, exactly.
I don't think they put cottage cheese in pasty crust.
No, they're flakier. It's a flakier crust, but this is just dry and real nice and moist, and it's delicious.
If you guys would leave, I could eat that plate.
You mean the plate, including
the whole thing? Yeah. These are fantastic.
The crust, I was really surprised at how moist the crust was.
It tastes like a Polish pastry with that lovely venison in there. Oh, fantastic.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. Well, Barbara Conklin does these types of things, the tartlets and things.
Right, little hors d'oeuvres and appetizers.
Hors d'oeuvres? That's a meal.
Plus, you could have made it into one great big one and then just sliced it or left it, big industrial size.
You know, it was fine just eating them plain, but now that I got the salsa into it, the salsa's outstanding on it. It just, boy, this is an invention. A grand invention. Wouldn't these be great in deer camp or at Thanksgiving or Christmas as hors d'oeuvres? This recipe will be in the new Practical Sportsman magazine, should be in the mail to former Outdoor Digest subscribers the first part of December, and if you want this issue, the address will be coming up at the end of the show. Now, for those hunters who want to bag a big buck, focus on the trophies, let's take a look at some of our hunting awards data we've compiled over the years. Here's a graph of the number of trophy bucks taken hour by hour, daylight till dark on opening day. 45 by 8 a.m., 34 between 8 and 9, 20 between 9 and 10, then a fairly constant lower level the rest of the day. This shows that the few hours after daylight on opening day, that's the best trophy buck hunting of the season. Ned Gibson was bow hunting in late October, and his 12-point buck with a 21-inch spread was active in that first hour.
I got the blind about 7 o'clock, about 5 minutes to 8. Without any intention, all of a sudden I just coughed, and I tried to cover my mouth and everything, and I thought, well, you just messed it up for at least a half hour. So I sat there and kind of relaxed, and I heard some noise. There's a creek real close, and heard some noise, and I thought, well, that's kind of funny. And I looked over, and all I saw were these white antlers coming through the brush, and it was pretty heavy. So I just said, well, I'll get ready. Well, I couldn't stand up because he could see me. He could see me, and I could see him. And he stopped, and he started to walk away. He's going to walk to the south of me, and I said, well, I got to turn him. So what I've done in the past to get deer to turn is just use my hand, not an artificial call, but I just use my hand and blow through it.
Like how?
Just go. And when I did that, he stopped, turned around, looked, and started walking right at me. Well, being a little nervous and shook up, as he passed by a big tree, I drew my bow back and stood up, so when he come to the clearing, I'm following him in, and all of a sudden my arrow falls off the front rest and goes ting, 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 ting. The buck stops, and he looks around a little bit, you know, waits about 20 seconds, and I'm froze. He starts walking again. So I take my finger and I put it back on, and I'm following him again. It come off the second time. Now, by now, I'm saying this deer's got to run, right? No, he was crazy enough. He just kept coming, so he took about 2 more steps. I put the arrow back on, and I nailed him.
Ned got that big buck here in Genesee County. That's number 4 county for bow trophies. But look, number 1, right down here, Jackson County, followed by Washtenaw and Livingston counties. That's where the most biggest bucks have come from with a bow. Rifle hunters looking here in the Lower Peninsula, well, Clare County for the southern part of the northern lower. But up here, Alpena and Sheboygan County are the top 2 for the trophies reported with rifle in the northern lower. The Upper Peninsula reports more, though, 43 in Chippewa, 46 in Mackinac County. The top county in the state for big bucks has been Iron County over the years. But you know, there are more important things than just being where the most big bucks come from. You can't get buck fever. Alan Hick from Breckenridge should know about this. If anybody should have had buck fever, he should have. You saw a doe followed by?
2 of the largest bucks I've ever seen in the woods. And at the same time, I could see those 2 and this one all in my scope at the same time. And I couldn't decide what to do. And the two bucks ahead of this was an 8 and a 6 point ahead of it. And I had to let them walk about 10 yards away from me, as I had to wait for this one to continue down the trail. And it never slowed down, it never hesitated. And I let the 2 walk by, and he kept coming, and I took him about 30 yards out.
You had to be nervous.
Extremely nervous.
Alan Hick was shooting a 30-06 Remington. That's the predominant choice of Michigan rifle hunters nowadays. He got that buck, by the way, in Montcalm County. This map shows stars on the counties that have produced bucks that have 20 antler points or more. Look at the pattern, far south, far north. The only northern lower counties are Leelanau, Alpena, and Isabella counties right there. But these are the ones with 20 points and up. Now, you got to hear this story. Jim Primo was hunting Livingston County. He's from Fenton. He got a 14-point. You're going to drop your teeth when you hear this story. Was this an exciting day for you, Jim?
Yeah, it was. Really exciting.
Well, you got how many bucks have you gotten in your life?
It's been 10 years with nothing until this year.
What about your dad? Has he gotten many bucks?
He's only had 1, and out of his, like, 25 years.
So here's the Primo boys out there hunting, and Jimmy gets this 14-point with a 21.5-inch spread. You're up there field dressing this deer. Was your dad excited?
He was so excited, he couldn't believe it was this big that his false teeth fell out inside the deer cavity.
Dropped his false teeth inside the deer. I gotta ask, then what'd he do? Did he fish him out? Did you fish him out?
He got him out. He goes, but don't laugh at me. I can't smell because I have no teeth. That's all he said. He goes, don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me, Jim. I can't talk right now. I have no teeth.
Now, did he slip in his pocket or what?
He put him in his pocket, and we just dragged him out, and then he went back home and then washed him out.
Oh, boy. You know, it's only natural for a father to be proud of his son when he gets a big deer. But I tell you, this is a practical show, and I have a practical suggestion for a practical product that you fathers who wear choppers, you might want to pack a little extra of this in with your deer hunting gear this season. But now we're going to move on to some practical tips of some rules, regulations that you deer hunters ought to be aware of. Bow hunting season is closed during firearm deer season, but you may use a bow and arrow under your firearm deer license. This means, though, that you must abide by all firearm regulations, including wearing hunter orange, and there's no hunting from tree stands. Albino or all-white deer are illegal to take or possess. A deer with mixed brown and white coats are legal, however. All guns and compound bows must be unloaded and in cases if they're in the passenger compartment of your vehicle. Without a case, they can only be transported in the trunk, unloaded. Now, Hunter Orange. All deer hunters must wear either a hat, cap, vest, jacket, or rain gear of the Hunter Orange color. Camouflage orange patterns, well, they're legal as long as 50% or more of the surface area is Hunter Orange. Deer hunting hours, 1/2 hour before sunrise to 1/2 hour after sunset, local time, so check the local paper for the hours in your area. Shining is illegal in November. No artificial lights, including car headlights, can be used to locate wild animals in November, even if you don't have a gun or bow in the car. And Sunday hunting closures are in effect in 12 southern Michigan counties. The restrictions vary, but this will affect deer hunters in 12 counties on opening day. So check the DNR hunting guide to make sure you're legal if you're hunting opening day in southern Michigan. But we are supposed to get some cold blasts of air coming in, which should improve the opener, maybe some snow for tracking and for visibility. But whatever you do, have a safe, practical, fun experience deer hunting. I want to see you back here next week. Good luck.
Studio segments for this show were videotaped at the Practical Sportsman Museum in Bath, Michigan, where Jose's 15 years of antlers are on display. Now, next week, we'll